we do have a lot to cover this afternoon. A couple items before we introduce Dr. Cunningham. Want to remind you that all of the DVDs from the entire convention this weekend are available on that rack. So if you just want individual ones or multiple of individual in the entire package, you go to that rack, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's there. If there's any that is not currently available, if you purchase it here, Chuck and Malibu Video have graciously offered to send it for no shipping charge. So today only, no shipping charge for anything that's not here. Again, can't emphasize enough, complete sets are the most cost-effective and efficient way to do it, whether it's the videos or the audios. And one of the things is that there are many ways to help cancer patients, particularly the new ones that may not be familiar with the fact that they have options. When an oncologist says your only option is surgery, or chemotherapy, or radiation, most patients just kind of cringe and go through it. Probably that's not true. There are many options, and one of the ways that we help educate patients is through the internet, through special reports and ebooks. And one of those that I just wanted to show you as an example is called America's Best Cancer Doctors and Their Secrets, a Patient's Guide to Making an Informed Choice. This particular special report is aimed at the patient, and it's written with the patient in mind. And I better, for full disclosure, mention that my name is on there as a co-author, but it's an example of what we're able to do. This obviously is not the e-version, this is the hardcover, but this and many other books are available to help patients. Ty Bollinger has a book, Henderson, these are self-help. This one is designed to educate patients that they have options of what some of them are. So we don't want your patients to engage in be left with despair. Some years ago, Dr. John Cannell, one of the founders of the Vitamin Council from our state, said that no doctor has the right to destroy hope. And I think that's extremely important, because when we're talking when patients call us, that's the one thing that they've lost is hope. They're full of despair, and that, of course, is weakening in this meeting. Is the fact that if there is hope, we don't promise anything other than we're going to do our best, we're going to try to make them in a better situation than when we found it. So with that, we're going to start. Our first presenter this afternoon is going to be Dr. Richard Cunningham, co-founder of Orthomolecular Society in San Francisco, close colleague of Abram Hoffer, Lionel Pauling, and others. And I consider him the father of methylation science, which is so very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Great introduction. Actually, I'm the founder of the current Society for Orthomolecular Health Medicine. Earlier in 1976, co-founder of the California Orthomolecular Society, the Lance, William Whitaker, Michael Lesser, Elizabeth Reese, Tony Gilman. A small group, as is usually the case. You get nothing, you get 15 people, you get a great answer. This says 7 minutes, is that correct? That's what I get. Therefore, I'm going to cut the small talk and go into a few good ideas, which I think I can leave with you. I thought I was going to get 15 minutes today, so I planned for that. If I don't finish, the first part of this is just simply a chance Dr. Oren showed the eradication of tumor, maybe cancer, skin cancer types, using his cauterizing lotion, which is injected low vascular with a toothpick into the tumor, which then would damage it, and the tumor a few days later fall off. We took a mole off here and threw this off there, and made a humanity, I tell you, and gave you the courage to give you this little picture that I saved it for about 10 years. Now, if I can remember how to do this, showing you step one. Patient, is this, can you hear me? Where am I out? Can you hear me in back? I don't know if it's raising their hand. Can you hear me in back now? You like that better? Okay, I don't mind the vibes, I just don't want to irritate you. All right, so, I'm supposed to find the X there. That's picture one. Let's see what happens. This lesion, the dermatologist was drawn for a wide dissection, a few centimeters around, treated it as a melanoma. So it was going to be a disfiguring lesion on the back of an otherwise unblemished beautiful young woman, at age 30. And then it goes on in sequence to, let's see if I can follow this. Let's see if I follow 2, it says, there we go. And I gave instructions to go home and begin to apply a trypsin transdermal lotion. For 2 weeks she did that, and let's see where it goes. And I know where it goes, of course, and you probably know already yourself. We're going to go on from here. So let's go to number 4. I don't get caught on this is really what we're supposed to do. Well, this is later on where I'm applying, and the last 2 weeks later it did not fall off with the Penzyme, and those of you who heard of it, penetrating inside from Iceland. But it did soften the tumor and gross inspection. And so I came to the office, and this was also a personal friend of mine, so I was willing to go the extra step. I didn't think malpractice liabilities would be an issue here. You can see it's starting to get white around the edges. As I just started to apply some iodide, and let's let that go. And it doesn't really matter all day on that, and I'm not trying to give a lesson that I actually know what I'm talking about. But at the end, well, it was getting warmer. I think my son was doing photography. We were missing the picture where the whole thing turned black. And 3 days later, when she came back, was that exit here? You can see it here. It's convincingly it's changing. Not to be trying to change, because you're going to change until you get to this point. Where a few days, 4 days later, you come back and there's not even a scar, and it's now 7 years later and there's no recurrence. So this was about a 2-week period with the enzyme trypsin, which is a trypsin, an activated penetrator. It's a small molecule, cold water fish trypsin, so it's more active than beef trypsin. It's not a pancreatic enzyme trypsin, it's a fish pancreatic trypsin, and it has a much more smaller molecule size to be penetrated forever. So I was looking to see what we get, and I think we got something because I got the iodine penetrated. 10 years earlier, I had a lady came to me right from Grand Rounds of Dermatology at UCSF, and she had a fungating mass on her lip that was about to be operated by wedge resection the following Tuesday. She got to me on Friday. I applied iodine directly from me to her from the Q-tip, and as I put the iodine on that lesion, it began to sizzle. Literally, you could hear it hissing and shrinking before my very startled eyes. And by Tuesday, there was nothing there to see, so she never had the wedge resection. Needless to say, she was a very good patient. And you could say, well, maybe it wasn't a cancer, very well likely a pyogenic granuloma, if you know what that is. Because she had granulation tissue infected, altered into a precancerous lesion. And the iodine denatured these exposed proteins. Iodine by the skin is very safe, except the granulation tissue. You get a raw wound, it will erase the wound, but it'll leave it without a scar. It will heal in. How do I know? Because one of my patients who trusted me more than a patient should ever trust anybody was told to use this to remove the wart under her axilla. And at home she done a cleaning of her stove using lye, sodium hydroxide. She burned herself. And she said, gee, this might be a good treatment for my burn. So she put the iodine on her burn, and it hurt like hell. So she kept on doing it. And 5 days later, there was a hole in her arm, all the way down to the bone. She came back to my office. And of course, I thought to myself, I've never had a malpractice case in 60 years. At that point, it was 45 years. But I still thought, my God, this is it. Well, it turned out the vitamin E around the margin, not in, but around the margin, but it is not pure substance in our nutrition. Lots. And 5 days or 7 days later, she was back in my case. The thing healed him by primary intention that she had a perfect healing of that ulcer that was all the way to the bone. Just to give you a little encouragement, those of you who are about potassium iodide, you should know, by the way, that diluted potassium iodide, half strength, is more effective than the full 60% iodide, which is SSKI. Anyway, that's a lecture itself. Let's not go there. So now, having said that, I thought that Dr. Orange reinforcement was already marvelous success in making me into an acceptable and civilized looking human being without a growth right in the front between the eyes, and to be uncivilized and aggressive in every 3 minutes. So here's a case where I wanted to do that very thing. And I wanted to do it intra-anal, because I had a guy with a grim prognosis of a cancer of the rectum, colorectal cancer. His brother had already died of colon cancer. He got to me too late, and we improved on my care. He died. Long story from over there. But here's a 64-year-old man, rectal bleeding for a month, worked up at UCSF, rectal adenocarcinoma, a biopsy, and that's a good help. Treatment plan pending, otherwise, etc. on this. And his studies, his ALT was already 65, so a high liver inflammatory marker. Maybe already metastases there. We can go down further. Father died, he had lung cancer. Mother had senility in her 70s. So there was some kind of a vascular dementia, probably the Alzheimer's. Then we go on into other things in the history that are important. MCV 94, that's mean corpuscular volume. It translates into a methylation defect. Talk about methylation defect, either usually ribofolic acid in this case, but let's see, I'm going to check the folate, so we're interested in this, because I give the details. So here's 94, it's not 100, it's not a pathological genetic, homozygous genetic type of MCV, but it's at least a significant polyheterozygous, maybe multiple areas of B12 and folic acid pathways both. So, otherwise, the C-reactive protein, which has started to go up to 2.2, C-reactive protein induces clotting, because you didn't know it, the tissue factor, which is the initial stage that turns on your fibrinogen clotting pathway. Anyway, we go on. The ferritin is 349. Not terribly high, but higher than normal, higher than optimal for sure. Serum iron 122, normal. Doesn't look much. You see the saturation 41%. At 41%, at 35% in women postmenopausal, the rate of colon cancer was up 50%. At 35%, that's normal. So normal is not normal, is it? Laboratory is fooling everybody. At 41% in men, it's already at least the same and maybe more vicious. If I find 35% is my cutoff for normal in my patients, I start treating iron. Just to let you know, because it's also not only pro-inflammatory. I had successfully treated prostate cancer because it's not my own. Went to another doctor who found he was bleeding, so he had anemia. So they treated him with injections of iron. After a 15-year with no downward spiral, so 15 years is statistically a bad time for prostate cancer patients. With that iron injection, he developed miliary metastases. He was dead in 6 months. And so that taught me maybe iron is a pretty good thing to watch out for in the cancer patients. Not only because it promotes endothelial and platelet activation, and these are normal, the vascular endothelial growth factors for one and other cancer growth factors, and blood vessel growth factors. Once the cancer finds a blood supply, you're in big trouble. Here, when I heard the hissing sound, I was knocking out enough to get the blood supply. When that cancer, regardless of what it looked like, or lack of biopsy, if it looks like, feels like an X-line, it is. And so it also, I couldn't hear the hiss, but it turned black and fell off. And that's what Dr. Oren is seeing also with his skin cancer. This case is very instructive. I think I'll stay with it. People have to involve with us. I have a lot to say that you can say for another day. So let me go a step further with this and let you really see the history of this. They're given intravenous vitamin C with hydroxycobalamin. I'll explain why. Not methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin doesn't work for treating cancer. Hydroxycobalamin works for cancer. Cyanocobalamin for sure doesn't work, although you think the cyanide might work just like Laetrile. The problem is that the cyanide is so close to the target, it knocks out the B12. Usually no. Cyanocobalamin is inactive until the body removes the CN radical, creating hydroxycobalamin, which is then available to keep the methylation cycle going. That's probably the basic concept about methylation in microbial toxicity, including this latest New England Journal article that just came out. So we go on. Patient reports a beneficial response. You know, perceptually we felt better. We also added selenium and some extra betaine in the overall. The betaine is an alternative route to methylation that doesn't require B12 fluoric acid. So if you have cyanocobalamin plus betaine, you have much better likelihood of getting better results. So I now was doing rectal exams for this fellow. Not bad enough. If they call it with your psychiatrist doing a rectal exam, it's called odds and ends. So in this case, the lesion was now fibrotic. It was a hard lesion. Now, maybe I'm just a novice, but hard lesions usually are not as dangerous as soft ones that are implicated. And it was split, probably from the biopsy. It was the right and left side. So it was a 1 by 5 millimeter. So it was half a centimeter. Okay, so here we go on. I treated with jasmine oil. Anybody not heard about jasmine oil? It's a mitochondrial blocker that knocks out cancer. Patented by scientists in Israel as we speak. Anyway, we can do that twice a week. My doctor take an aggressive. He was on line for surgery, including colectomy and lifetime with a colectomy bag. But he was still from his wife debating whether to do chemo and radiation also by the end of the year. As I mentioned earlier, yesterday, my sister had chemo and one of the results of the removal of the nodule, the chemo, especially with platinum filter, clearly Alzheimer's, she had 14, and she was out in a month. She was brilliant. So he goes on, and he heard a very important sentence. I don't trust everyone. I'm just reading my underlines here. And then I had to talk to the doctor who was a prognosis, and he admitted that over a 20-year period, they reported 16 cases of MD Anderson, 50% recurrence after surgery, 90% recurrence after radiation chemo. What else do you need to know? If you're looking to talk to an alternative doctor, here's your evidence right there. If I show improvement after the orthodox treatment, that may be better to delay other treatments after the first of the year. It was giving them up to cure him. Wow. So I'm almost out there. I get out your head. So then I did, under those DNA conditions, I said for the Health Research Diagnostics Laboratory, how many people have heard of that in New Jersey? Okay, we do a methylation camp. And so I was doing, his nagalase was not up that high. So at 2.4, it was not a widespread or severe, it wasn't a 3 or 4. Down there in the 2s, shouldn't be up above 1. So he's up. Then we go, transfer volume 2 is over the line, indicating actually some need to be nitrosyltyrosine is edits, protein edits in nitric oxide. The triple is glutathione, reduced glutathione is the lowest I've ever seen. And that's after I was treated. So I have failed so far. His adenosine was low, so it's not methylating enough to create the active methyl transfer factor. SAMe is your methylator. And his SAH, which is adenosine homocysteine, is high, about 10 to 15%, even on the treatment program. Wow. His folic acids now were normal. Well, straight through, except his red blood cell folate came out tad low, which means he didn't have enough either what I call reduced folate transporters, which are just, that's probably what's going on because they don't work under oxidative conditions, which he had with a low glutathione all the way around. And also there is the polyglutamates of the fluids, just so you heard it, are with 6 carbons, 6 chains long, keep the folates inside the cell so they don't get lost. Otherwise, you lose the protective side of foliar. Well, anyway, even with improvement by rectal, we have the works and the different sense. Okay, well, I can stop right there. Now, I'm just going to give you an example of where we are, even using the advanced stuff. But what we have here in our group is a grab bag of great ideas and partially successful treatments. Put that on me, I got cancer myself. Widespread. I was killing it 2 years ago. And that was still going, and my golf team's getting good. You know, it's like, an unexpected blessing. It's the awakening heaven study. In any case, so you get the idea. We could be talking a long time, because every idea that's out there is good. By and large, to generalize my last comment, by and large, if you get it early, you can do it, even by surgery. But it's expensive because it's mutilated. Any surgery. Secondly, if you get it early after that, if you get too much of a blood vessel supply, most of the angiostatic treatments, including DIM, including the betaine that we put in my oral product, is 1,000 milligrams there. There's enough to actually block the AKTs, block the new blood vessel formations, and then you can have the others. You know, but nobody knows how much is enough. But at least we know it's a good idea. And then you can throw in the cytotoxic therapies on top of it, which are probably safer and better battle tested in the orthomolecular and herbal fields than any other. All the stuff coming out of the Genentech is severely toxic. You know, I don't see my patients living in the wrong thing, and very quality of life. So thanks a lot for letting me know for offering to give you some things. The last thing I didn't say is the name Marie Poidoc, P-O-I-D-O-C-K. Poidoc spent 20 years researching hydroxycobalamin. It took 10 years to find the only cobalamin that worked was hydroxycobalamin. And it knocked out cancer in all the animal models. It's cancer. And it worked by when you combine hydroxycobalamin with vitamin C, only as ascorbic acid, you kill cancer. And you kill the cancer by releasing cobalt and causing cobalt toxicity. And you can take it from there. It's very interesting. That was presented at Linus Pauling in the 1990s. Hardly anyone's followed up on it. Only this year, I'm seeing now new studies showing hydroxycobalamin, vitamin B12, and environmental iron. It's major cytotoxic. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kennedy, thank you very much. While Dr. Pai is coming up, is there anyone question or comment for Dr. Kennedy? Again,
If you had to awfully fast, how many of you this world have? Have anybody gotten into this the logic of cancer treatment? Because vitamin C is not just a matter of direct vitamin C by itself. And when you combine it with hydroxycobalamin, because I'm doing it on me, only once a week, and I'm still alive. USA's are easily called as twice a year treatment. Twice a year. So I have good quality of life. Twice a year to be for more suppression. I can't even leave. I can live in the room and see the picture.
thank you very much, and we won't comment on that part.
That's a very important part.
It is extremely important that we'll leave it at that. Talk in terms of equipment change, where are we? Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, the next portion of this is going to be Dr. Sunil Pai. Again, someone that we actually, Lorraine and I met, going to other professional conferences, very enthusiastic about his presentations, and the fact that he has the science to back it up. Dr. Pai, thank you.
Right, thank you for inviting me today, Frank and Lorraine, everybody here. Who is here this Saturday that was on the website? Okay, so I'm going to go pretty quickly. Everything that I'm going to speak about today is actually on our website. There's 2 articles that we've been published, one last year and then just recently this year on these subjects. So if you want to look at a peer-reviewed article that has a little bit more detail, it's on the website, so sendjimmy.net. So just let's get started here. We'll talk about briefly the role of inflammation in cancer and chronic disease. And most of us already know that today. We're going to be talking about that. So I'm just going to talk really specifically on what we can use as anti-inflammatories in for targeting inflammation, cancer and chronic disease. So let's start. We all know that inflammation is a triggering mechanism of most diseases. I'm going to go real quickly here. And many people have covered this. Environmental, food is very important. So a whole food plant-based diet for all our patients, a vegan diet. Other people talked about this weekend about bacteria, viruses, parasites, environmental toxins, exposure, radiation, even stress that we talked about. All these things trigger inflammation. When we look at it, is that inflammation, chronic inflammation due to toxic environment, poor dietary lifestyle factors, trigger onset of inflammation. Inflammation then causes more what I consider itis conditions, right? And we all have we talk about acute inflammation being good and a good response, but chronic inflammation being a problem. And so again, from an arthritis going to a colitis, doing heart disease, and even neurodegenerative diseases, we all understand that inflammation plays a role. And we have now, this slide is not again, but we have over 200 itis different conditions, and we want to look at what is triggering those inflammatory mechanisms individually. And so, for example, with cancer, we know that 40% of patients that have ulcerative colitis over 20 to 35 years will have colorectal cancer. So inflammation does play a role not only just in acute chronic disease, but also in cancer. So we look at this major activation switch called NF-kappa beta. You can do a lot. You can Google NF-kappa beta, and you'll see a lot of information from Dr. Agarwal and MD Anderson, who has done most of the research on looking at this role of this major inflammatory switch, which, along with other inflammatory enzymes and pathways like COX and LOX enzymes, are attributed and involved in most chronic disease and cancer. So NF-kappa beta has a variety of transcription factors, protein stimulators, viruses, receptors, enzymes, and apoptosis regulators. And it's also seen in many diseases, and also more importantly in this conference, it's been related to most cancers. And so when we get conventional pharmacotherapy, we look at TNF-alpha blockers, we look at things that will block NF-kappa beta because of the onslaught of how many pathways that affect cell growth. And we see the NF-kappa beta throughout the life of the cancer cell growth, 10 to 20 years to the time it becomes a metastatic lesion. And we all know, like they talked about earlier, that chemo and radiation now has been shown to actually increase NF-kappa beta. And although we have these new mid-and-now drugs, as we all know, they're very expensive, they're very toxic, and they also have black box warnings. Black box warnings where you can actually get more cancer from those treatments. And also from our dietary issues of taking in more animal proteins and also highly refined oils, if we're moving to the plant-based diet, is very important. That's Dr. Delgado and some other people will be speaking about today. So we want to reduce those intakes. And when you get certain drugs that block the COX and LOX enzymes, that's very important as well. So the hypothesis that I've always been working with is that stress lifestyle creates chronic inflammation, especially the main 3 or 4 triggers, and then that chronic inflammation eventually over time through a variety of other mechanisms also then trigger cancer cell growth. So we can use a fire hose approach or a sprinkler system approach. And I like the sprinkler system approach using nutraceuticals. So we go real quickly to the main ingredients that I like to use is curcumin. We all have heard about curcumin for the last 15, 20 years, but there's differences in potency and safety and efficacy. And so what I've done in the last 14 years is research. Why is it that we've seen the research that these things work, and yet in our patients, a lot of times they don't? And it's because after 9/11, almost everything that comes in outside from the United States is irradiated. And so every turmeric, every pine herb, every kind of product that's a food or a spice is irradiated. And so we have to look at, well, what are they using in the clinical trials, and why are they getting benefits? But why is my patients go to the health food stores? They don't. We have to look at how the supply is coming, how they're extracting it, and what are the potencies and purities of that, so we can get those clinical results. Curcumin blocks over 97 different mechanisms of inflammation, and NF-kappa, COX, 2, 5-LOX, and a variety of others. And it's been shown to penetrate all sorts of tissues. It's also been shown to be a chemoprotector agent, and also sensitizes the tumors sensitizes the tumors to the chemo and radiation affects the healthy cells. It's been shown to affect all stages of cancer growth, and almost every single chemotherapy and now radiation therapy with a variety of cancers has been shown in not only the patient, the animal studies, but now the human studies, that it's been used in combination, it will improve the outcome. So we now are encouraging people to speak to their oncologist and saying that we are actually using this in conjunction. Let's go really quickly. These are the drugs that curcumin actually works very similar to in terms of the pathways without the side effects. And we can even take it as an oral TNF alpha blocker. So it's pretty amazing that we actually have these in humans that just a little bit of 150 milligrams twice a day can reduce TNF alpha statistically significantly. So what kind? I like to use something called a C3 complex. It's one that we've used for 20 years. We have patents on it. We have most clinical trials on there. And we like to give it a sustained release formulation. We can see that sometimes there's newer formulations that I'll leave up to the questions that are nanoparticularized, that are also the phosphatidylate of choline or fat molecule for absorption. And we're finding out now that the data that they're showing is measuring metabolites that do not have anti-inflammatory reactions. So there's a lot of marketing, not actually a lot of efficacy. Boswellia also has been shown to have a lot of anti-inflammatory effects. We look at 3 fractions of these boswellic acids, AKBBA and polysol. Ginger, as we all know, it's also has anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer effects in most tissues. We also look at the amount of gingerols and also black pepper, which is a bioavailable enhancer, but it also has its own anti-cancer, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory effects as well. Biotin, which most of you are well aware in most products. And these things all block very specifically the COX-MOX enzymes and NF-kappa beta as well. There's a product out there I formulated that has the 4 ingredients at the clinical doses, has a 20-minute onset of action, 8 hours sustained release. There is some samples on your table. And then last thing, I'll speak for just 1 more minute here, is the use of CBDs, it's cannabidiols. We all understand the concept. There's 2 movies I recommend people watching that Sanjay Gupta did on weed, and understanding that the use of cannabidiols, we all know that medical marijuana can be used very successfully in cancer patients, but it also has the THC, which many patients can't or will not tolerate, also depending on the state and the legislation of whether it's legal or not. We do have a source that you can get CBDs without the THC or traces, which makes it legal, and you can't get high, and that comes from industrial hemp oil. And so it's been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects without the THC. It blocks NF-kappa beta, COX, and STAT3 enzymes. And it has balancing effects on the immune system and also anti-cancer benefits similar to curcumin as well. So you can get these from the CBDs from medical marijuana. It has THC, and THC may have some benefits in certain types of patients and certain types of cancers, but due to the availability of the dispensary, the differences of potencies and grades, and stigmas along with it, I prefer to use it coming from a source that it is legal in all 50 states. You don't need to have a marijuana card or a doctor's prescription, but you also have to ensure that these batches are being tested for potency, purity, for the THC, the CBD contents, the pesticides, molds, contaminants. Most industrial hemp oil comes from China, so we get a source that comes from Europe right now. And I'll just leave it there and we'll go to questions.
Thank you very much.
Comments up here?
Hemp oil assay for mercury?
Yes, they do. They look for heavy metals, they look for pesticides, and they also look at the different CBD fractions as well as the THC fractions, and it has to be lower than the federal guidelines, otherwise I won't be able to sell it.
They falsify results. Now,
It's known to falsify results from the clinical trials, but now if they irradiate, make it inactive, and we can do a clinical trial without the falsification, it still proves that it doesn't work, so it's no better. But there are some other things. With anthrax thing, right after 9/11, the anthrax thing was to make it was necessary to irradiate all the mail from the congressmen and senators, which caused the CDs to melt the paper, different letters to turn into things. So it disconnected the constituency from the leadership in Washington. They're not able to do things. And there's one third thing that I was just going to write down. Dr. Singh, he told me that as of 2005, Ayurvedic medicine textbooks were no longer permitted to be imported in the United States. A memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Postal Service and the Indian government. They don't want what works here. They don't want to take away the profits from what we've got.
Comment on that?
The second part, no, I don't really comment on that. The first part, yes. The radiation is just like microwaving your food. So when we actually were inspecting, when we went to India to look at the manufacturers that were sending the raw product over here, just to accumulate containers. What it does is they go through a standardization process where they just it goes to a third party, they stamp it that it's been irradiated. The thing is that the dose of that irradiation that they give is the same for surgical equipment, for example, to sterilize it, as it is for the food. And what we know now in this food and nutrition is that when we irradiate food, like microwaving your broccoli, we lose about 94% of its nutrient value. And so there is a difference of people actually using organic or using non-GMO and non-irradiated products. And so we have to be careful. Like when we use the C3 complex that's in ours, we actually have to go through a specific certification process so it doesn't get irradiated. But it costs more, there's a lot more regulations, a lot more headache. But we have to ensure that we're giving our patients that clinical outcome that we read every day that's being published in the literature.
It's a quick question. What is the difference between organic and wild caught?
Certification. So in certain parts of the world, it's very difficult to get USDA organic certification. So wild caught means they don't use any herbicides or pesticides, but there's a certification process. There's certain governments and organizations that you have to pay a fee, and in certain countries this becomes cost prohibitive. So that's why we say organic and wild pathogen. It's almost the same thing, but we also have to be careful that you're in an area where it's wild pathogen, that they're not spraying other places.
Okay. Final comment or question?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And will you be around until the end of the day? Okay. Thank you very much. So is this a good time to take an equipment change for you and Harold? Okay. Next on the list, Dr. Jimenez. While we do this, we're going to work on some equipment here, and we'll let Dr. Jimenez get started. Again, he's the founder and medical director of Hope for Cancer, located in Tijuana.
Thank you all. The first thing I want to say is that treating and preventing chronic disease deals with the same criteria. And I Hope for Cancer, in my 25 years of work in holistic oncology, I came up with the 7 key principles that you all know with respect to treating cancer. They are non-toxic cancer therapies, oxygenation, immune optimization, antimicrobial therapy, and you know Dr. Sandy Liu speaks a lot about microbes, and really, in my opinion, I think it's a combination of all. We tend to see parasites and bacteria more often than other microbes. We have to remember about the pleomorphism theory of disease, and it's about the internal milieu. So you could do all these antimicrobial agents, but if the internal milieu is toxic, then you're providing an environment for growth of pathogens. So antimicrobial therapy is very important. Also detoxification, of course, and then we have to deal with the nutrition and the psychological, spiritual aspect of disease. And I could tell you that if we do not address the emotional, biological aspect of disease, it's very, very difficult to get to the end stage of the result we want in complete resolution of disease. Let me tell you a story. I had a patient, breast cancer, treating her for about 3 years. She was stable, doing well. But then, as I learned more about the emotional aspect of disease, I began to engage her in this. And she revealed to me that at the age of 11, she was sexually abused by her father, her uncle, and her grandfather. So now this patient, Phyllis, was 62 years old. For about 50 years, they knew the 3 of them and herself. And now she's telling me this. What happened at that point? I helped her let go of, obviously, this very acute, sudden, traumatic experience that she did not have a solution for, an answer to, at the time that it occurred. At that time, I kid you not, the tumor just began to regress without anything, just the fact of letting go of these traumatic experiences. And I can tell you about leukemia patients, prostate cancer patients, colon cancer patients, breast cancer. Remember, the right breast is associated with the man side, the left breast is the mother-child. It's the nest. So every patient, 100% of the patient with left breast cancer will have a mother-child conflict, whether it's her as a child to her mom or her as a mom to her child. And that's 100% of the time because this is biological, it's not psychological. Okay, so there's many examples of this. The next thing I want to talk about, that you can see on the slide here, is Rigvir. Rigvir viral therapy. We're using viruses now, or a virus, to affect cancer, to kill cancer cells. In the old Soviet Union, in the mid-60s, they were experimenting and working a lot with viruses. These are the same people that developed the polio vaccine and worked with smallpox and all those. So they found one virus, which is the ECO7 enterovirus, found in the healthy gut of children between 7 and 11 years old, that is non-pathogenic. It's non-genetically modified, obviously, and it has no side effects in all the clinical studies, preclinical safety, toxicity, and animal studies. So in Latvia, this work has continued with respect to viral therapy. They have a FDA-approved virus that they prescribe the oncologist to as a main drug for cancer. So maybe, since we have here, these are the 7 key principles of cancer therapy, and we were published in a peer-reviewed medical journal at UCLA. These are the 7 key principles that I mentioned. So all these 7 apply to cancer patients, with the exception of the one on the top left, the non-toxic cancer therapies. All the rest apply to all of us. So if someone wants to learn about prevention, follow the 6 of them. And that's the best start you can have. Rigvir is it introduces a new era in cancer therapy. It's the first live virus to be introduced as an anti-cancer drug with the following qualities. It has oncotropic and oncolytic activity, is non-pathogenic, it has no side effects or very few side effects, and it has passed all phases of clinical trials. It was registered as an anti-cancer drug in Latvia, prescribed by oncologists and sold in pharmacies. It was developed by the Latvian Biotherapy Center in Riga, Latvia. It's approved for the treatment of melanoma with proven efficacy against a variety of other cancers, and I'll mention those in a minute. And it is backed by over 50 years of extensive preclinical and clinical research. At Hope for Cancer in Mexico, we were blessed to be certified and approved as the first center in this part of the world to be able to provide Rigvir viral therapy. The cancer types that are sensitive to Rigvir are GI tract cancers that you see there, urogenital, and a lot of the sarcomas. We do well with metastatic diseases to the liver and lung. From a theoretical perspective, we believe that the Rigvir viral therapy can affect all cancers. However, we haven't had the opportunity to prove it in all cancers because it is an approved drug or medicine for cancer. We have to be careful, what we say with that. The advantages to Rigvir is, as I mentioned, oncotropic, oncolytic, non-pathogenic, very high therapeutic index. It triggers an immune response. It triggers tumor immunological regression, upregulating apoptosis. It can be applied to local and metastatic disease for the surgical oncologists in the room. We also do Rigvir viral therapy about a week before a surgical intervention, and we have significantly decreased the risk of metastatic disease. It's usable as a prophylactic drug, also after surgery. What else? We can't use it concurrently with chemotherapy or radiation because they just kill the virus. They render it inactive. So We have to dosify it accordingly if a patient is receiving chemo or radiation or IPT. These are a lot of product details, or the information is here. I'm sure these slides will be made available to you. It is kept frozen, so the shipping and everything has to be kept in dry ice, and the temperature is minus 20 degrees Celsius. This is the work from Professor Anna Musanegi, published in 1972 in Russian. And just quickly, Frank, it is an oncolytic virus, only affecting cancer cells, leaving normal cells untouched. In brief, it breaks down cancer cells, initiates an immune rejection of tumor, and engages in apoptosis. These are the mechanism of action. It interferes with the complement system. Cancer cells inhibit a global immune system called the complement system that gets triggered by an infection or foreign presence. Cancer cells have cell surface receptors. So basically what Rigvir does is it binds to these cell surface receptors and now uncloaks the ability for the immune system to recognize the cancer cell. And it shows you everything here, stimulating using the CD55, CD59 microglobulins to express immune potential in natural killer cells. It affects both the humoral and the cellular immune system. In the preclinical studies, it's done in immunological studies, toxicity, carcinogenicity, allergic, CNS, central cardiovascular system. Clinical trials have been done in hundreds of thousands of patients, and scientific publications also are available. So I was really impressed when I went to the oncology center in Riga, Latvia, that with a prescription in an oncology center, you can get the Rigvir. And I've been to over 70 countries in the world, and if it's not chemo radiation, you can't get it in an oncology hospital. Right? There's 30 oncologists in this hospital. 10 of them prescribe Rigvir before they prescribe chemotherapy radiation. The other 20 are still coming across to the light. They're still up in the dark side. One of them crossed over after he himself developed cancer, and he realized that he didn't want to do chemotherapy, so he started on Rigvir. By the way, I took an injection of Rigvir myself when I had prostate cancer, so that's new to my heart, and it has significant benefits for the immune system, more so than anything I've seen in 25 years. We have 8 patients now that have used Rigvir, so preventatively or prophylactically. And just one more thing, Hope for Cancer is putting together a cruise October 24th and 28th for patients, physicians, and there'll be a fun time in the seas of the Pacific. It goes to Ensenada, so anyone of you have no short notice, but if anyone of you wants to join us for 4 days, it'll be a lot of education, learning, and fun. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Dr. Menace, thank you very much. First of all, any questions or comment up here? Okay.
Which ship is that? What ship?
It's a princess.
That's not one that had problems.
The drug thing, what's your mode of delivery?
The Rigvir is it's applied intramuscularly. There is a regional principal application. So, for example, if there's a lymph node, we start off with applying it in the opposite area of the affected lymph node, and then we rotate on a specific interval. We do an induction phase of 3 straight injections, day 1, day 2, day 3, and then they're applied weekly after that for the first cycle, which is 3 months. At those 3 months, we monitor IgAs, IgM, IgGs, and we look at ratios of leukocytes, monocytes, and monocytes, lymphocytes, because just looking at the normal ranges of these cells, it doesn't give us too much information. So we've learned a lot in immunology. These are top immunologists. The chief scientific advisor of the Latin Biotherapy Center is Professor Ebars, has over 600 patents and 550 publications. his drug was, he developed another drug that just was approved by the US FDA for T-cell lymphoma. So these are high quality people. And I encourage you to look at this information and see if it's something you would like to prescribe.
Here, grab a microphone over here. And
Tony, is there a period of time for this treatment, or is it an ongoing treatment for many months? When I was in Latvia, I've been here about 4 times already, and I saw patients, one was 23 years recovered from cancer, from stage 4 lung cancer, and that individual was still going every year for 1 injection. And I didn't ask her because she didn't speak English, but the translator, we asked them why they were still doing it. So it was sort of like a crutch for them, they were doing so well. I also saw other patients that were 5, 6, 7 years, since they were first being treated, and they were going periodically, maybe every 6 months for 1 injection. So for me, for prevention, I'm going to take an injection for up to 3 every year, depending on how my immune system is at that time.
prophylactic as well.
Sorry?
Prophylactic.
Prophylactic as well. We don't have evidence of that. I just want to be clear, right? This is an approved medicine for cancer, but what we see, we're using prophylactic as well.
Tony, what's it cost?
Hand is done. I learned years ago, Peter, that I don't touch that because I put my foot in my mouth, but to call our patient coordinator and she could help you with that.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Yes, one more question?
Dr. Yu? Okay. We're going to change tape.
Thank you, Tony. My question is, since we're using a viral modality to address have the oncolytic effect, is the patient going to be not doing immunotherapies, or are they going to be waiting for this out and see, and if so, what's the window? And that used to be a pulse therapy.
Yes, that's a good question. When I discuss this with the immunologists, oncologists, virologists in Latvia, they've always done it as a cell therapy. I believe that us together in hopefully cancer are going to have even better results. I also believe, and they tend to agree with me, that because it's a non-pathogenic virus, you can affect it with these compounds that have antiviral effects. I continue to do saunas, I continue to do hypothermia, maybe using auristatin and other antivirals. So we haven't seen any decrease in effects in this short amount of time that we have used it at Cold Cancer.
Thank you very much. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have to change the equipment, and as long as you stand up quietly, we'd like to, a couple of comments and things that we'd like to cover. If you have to leave quietly. There was some comment about electromagnetic frequency, EMF, protection devices. There was a comment that none of them are scientifically provable or of any benefit. And I think with that type of device, if you take a patient, a person that has symptoms, suffering, give that individual one of these devices and those symptoms and that suffering goes away, that's a form of evidence. And to the suffering patient, it makes little difference whether there's any scientific validity or whether or not the effect can be measured. But if the suffering is gone, that's the first step. And then at some point, hopefully in the very near future, as Dr. Blank talked about, we need to begin to look at biological effects of these things rather than just the theoretical exposure level on the spectrum. So if, for instance, people that are sick, whether it's a smart meter, whether it's a cell phone, whether they have headaches, vertigo, or they just can't function, and they start to use one of these devices, and that goes away, I submit that is a form of evidence. It's an anecdote, and anecdotes are acceptable as evidence, as explained in the New England Journal of Medicine about 6-7 years ago. So Again, we don't endorse any particular devices. I have one on my phone, I have some at home. I know Dr. Ford is here. She has written a book about it, researched, and recommends some products. But we encourage you to look into it and listen to people like Dr. Blank that say that there is a biological effect, not just a theoretical physiological, but a biological effect. And we have many people here that have had experienced that. The other thing, there's a doctor here in the Greater Los Angeles area, an integrated physician, a longtime friend of ours, that is looking for either RN, RNP, or PA to help in an integrated clinic in the Greater Los Angeles area. So if you are one of those, or you know one, please see me after the show, after the program, and I'll put you in touch. All right, while we're still changing equipment, I'm going to ask Dr. Raffi to come up. Okay, and then you ask Harold if he's ready. Jeff, can you put your hand up here for a moment? While we're bringing this up, before we introduce him again, I want to remind you, obviously, about the First Cancer Book House, and it's interesting. Travel around the world, people read. Even in some of the third world countries, in Mexico, even young people read. Now, granted, a lot of it's maybe what we would call pulp fiction, pulp novels, but they read. They stand in the store and read. Yes, they have their handheld devices as well, but and throughout Asia, of all ages, people are reading. So, of course, that's why we have the Cancer Book House. I do a lot of things online, but I prefer to hold the book or journal in my hand and be able to when I'm reading it. So we have that. By the same token, we have the visually stimulating as well as the electrically stimulating DVDs and CDs. And again, CDs extremely effective when you're driving in your car, because we don't want you watching something. And then, of course, the DVDs, we have them right back here for the entire weekend. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Special here, if we don't have it there, so you can take it with you. Truckers agreed to send it to you at no additional cost. So please do that during the breaks. Okay. Dr. Raffi is looking for the flash drive, so we're going to ask Dr. Edelman to come up in his place. That's fine. Those of you who may have seen his presentation, Dr. Edelman is one of our local physicians. We've known Bill for I don't know how many years. maybe even when we both had brown hair, dark hair, but you've done so much work with so many patients, and again, it's a patient level, and that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for being here. And I'm sort of a simple country doctor working in the heart of Hollywood, but so I've been working for a long time, and I originally started out as a psychiatrist, and people, I mean, here we're getting down to some really nitty-gritty hard science, which is really important. And the people are mentioning, well, love is the main healer. You gotta, if you don't get your emotional thing together, then you're likely not to heal. And a few years ago, Dr. Carl Simonton spoke here, and talking about the emotional aspects of it. And I don't really have all of the data on me, but I know that people who studied the psychotherapy work in treating cancer, and I think the conclusion was no. But Lawrence Leshon, who's a psychologist, did some work, and what he eventually came to was that if he was able to ask people, what in your life did you really want to do that you never did? And then he would get them to find something that might just be recreational, might be professional, might be important, might not be important. But if there was something they really always wanted to do and they didn't do, and then they started doing it, that enabled them to initiate the healing process for the cancer of whatever else they were doing. So you can do everything right in the sense of the biochemistry and the treatment and all of that, and if their emotional state is still blocked, they're not going to get well. And then if they do get the right, whether it's releasing a blocked emotion like one of the other doctors was just mentioning, or whether it's finding the thing that really turns them on so they want to live and have the juice for living, that this is really an important part of the working with cancer patients. I want to make a comment about the idea is that if the ionizing radiation is the radiation that's dangerous, non-ionizing radiation is not dangerous. That's the official standpoint. We have the evidence here to prove that it isn't, that that's not true, that it's that non-ionizing radiation can be dangerous. And, but there isn't really that much of a good scientific explanation of why. And the original person to talk about this, the person who actually discovered the body being electromagnetic scientifically as a liquid crystal, was Robert O. Becker, an orthopedic surgeon from upstate New York in the 1960s in Basic Science Research, published in orthopedic medical journals. He started out working on salamanders and frogs and worked his way up to people. But what he discovered was that the body and the brain literally is a liquid crystal. And the first person to ever suggest this concept was Erwin Schrödinger, who some of you may recognize as being one of the original pioneers in quantum physics. So there was Einstein, Bohr, Planck, Schrödinger were sort of the main ones. And in 1936, he wrote a book called What is Life, in which he apologized that normally a scientist is not supposed to go out of their field. But his field is quantum physics, but he's going to talk about biology because if he doesn't say it, nobody else will. And what he said was that the body theoretically should be a crystal, a liquid crystal, as the carbon atoms, where they have the same electrical qualities as silicon, and silicon is the crystals are the basis of modern technology. The original radios were called crystal sets. The original computer chips were sliced quartz. And then when they were growing their own crystals, to change the electrical qualities dramatically of the growing crystals, they would put in some tiny amount, usually of minerals, that they called doping it. So that's why small amounts of minerals or vitamins or other nutrients might dramatically change electrical qualities in the body. So the body is a liquid crystal with the same type of solid-state electromagnetism as modern technology, and that's the reason why all these other fields that nobody else, that the conventional scientists think shouldn't have an effect, why they do.
Questions, comments?
Here?
The doping transistors, maybe on-off flow, or visual one years. There may be bodies that look like crystals of cellular intelligence, the quantum hologram, and there may be some crystals used cheating atomic channels through that on-off switching that will permit things with the doping between different things.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but in terms of the body, what Becker showed was that among other things, the perineural cells are semiconducting. That's what he proved. And normally we think that the neurons are the active ingredient of the brain, and the perineural cells, the other 90% of the brain, aren't really functional in the activity of the nervous system. But it turns out that's not true. And in evolution, the other cells evolved, the neurons evolved out of the background field, and the background, like let's say, if I'm going to point, then there's a change in the field before the nerve fires to move my arm. So the solid-state electricity in the brain is moderating and controlling the firing of the neurons. So it's really important.
Yes, Dr. Elmer, is there I know it's mentioned in your description here, you were going to talk about Canvas oil.
Yes.
Is there an actual protocol related to medicinal marijuana for different cancers?
Well, we're right at the beginning. It's too soon, really, to say. So there are people who are taking, the original Rick Simpson was the first one to do this. He made this super concentrated oil. He applied it topically to skin cancer, and after a week or two or three, it fell off. And then that was repeated on himself and others, and then people started taking it orally. It's a pretty high dose. What he was using, which is mainly THC, low CBD probably, and they were taking it. He would take it a few times a day. So it's pretty simple. There's, we're not at the kind of scientific level that a lot of people would like to get to yet.
This is brilliant, very well done. I have a PhD in psychology, and I've been a psychologist for 25 years. I trained with Tibetan medical doctors, and what do you think it's going to take for traditional medicine to start looking at consciousness and how it affects the body?
Yeah, you got me on that one. They're pretty unconscious, so I think it's going to take a good shot at that.
Very good. Up here now, any questions? Okay, Dr. Osmond, thank you very much. And again, you'll be around to talk to you. I see Dr. Ratcher has returned, so we'll get you up here and going. Put it in and look for it. Dr. Cyrus Raffi, Center for Thermal Oncology, and again, hyperthermia going back, 3,000 years, and to the present day, and time permitting, we'll like to say some things about polio. But in the meantime, Dr. Raffi is here now. He's in Santa Monica and utilizes hyperthermia. So, Dr. Raffi, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I've been involved for the last 25 years with hyperthermia delivery using different technologies such as microwave, ultrasound and localized current field. With most of my experience, most of my treatment in Long Beach Memorial, now considered center for hyperthermia. What we talked about before, that hyperthermia is a FDA approved. The FDA-approved therapy that raises tumor temperature to about 107 to 123 Fahrenheit. It's easily tolerated by all of our patients so far, and there is no short-term or long-term side effects associated with it. The biggest side effect that so far we have experienced has been fat necrosis, which resolves by itself in 6 months. In the last 25 years, that's the only side effect that I had. Since we started talking about side effects, I'm going to show you the slide that's changed completely. So the most common side effect from hyperthermia is the blister. And the blisters are, with the device that we are using, are so small that we have to take a picture of it and enlarge it to see it with the blister. And they usually resolve within a week. The first person that tried to use hyperthermia against cancer was Dr. Foley. Around 1893, he noticed that when cancer patients have high-grade fever, tumor disappears spontaneously. So based on that observation, he mixed a couple of bacteria. He got the best result from Streptococcus pyogenes and Serratia marcescens. He would mix it and inject the patient or inject the tumor sites directly. And he got good result. He was able to extend the life of some of the cancer patients, and in some cases he reported actually the tumor completely disappeared. But his result was very difficult to duplicate. But right now in modern hyperthermia treatment, we use devices like this. This is an ultrasound device. This is a small applicator. We have a larger applicator. This one uses 4 ultrasound transducer, and each one of them has its own power supply. So we can match the heating to the shape of the tumor if it is necessary. Most of the time we don't do that. It has a 16-channel thermometry at 1 megahertz frequency, can penetrate to about 4 cm. At 3.5 megahertz, it can penetrate to about 10 cm, considering 2 cm of subcutaneous fat. Now, the way we measure this is very different. We put a phantom, we heat it for about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, then we open the phantom to see where we see the heating. So these are actual heating. It's by radiation, not by diffusion. The way ultrasound heats is that it sends mechanical waves that go through the water bolus that you see here into the tissue, increases the molecular vibration and molecular collision, which creates the heat, gentle heat inside. And as I mentioned, it's well tolerated. We can heat most of the anatomical sites with ultrasound, with the exception of brain and lungs. Brain, we cannot penetrate the skull, and lungs, ultrasound does not move, does not travel in air. So because in lungs we have air cavity, it's not effective. Also, we are a little bit concerned about heating either one of those 2 sites because we don't want to mess around with the brain, heating the brain. With hyperthermia, we take advantage of the blood vessel formation in the cancer, which is very different than the normal tissue. in cancer, blood vessels do not have smooth muscle, they don't have nerve ending, they're inefficient orientation, they have inefficient orientation, there's lots of flow variation, and large diameter trunks, which creates a toxic environment. In addition, the tumor cells have high metabolism, so they are using more oxygen, more nutrient, and they generate a lot more waste product. So we apply hyperthermia. Normal tissue can get rid of the excess heat without any problem, but tumors tend to accumulate the heat, and because of coagulate the tissue, which causes the death of the cell. With that, I just want to show you one example of a patient that we have treated. This is a melanoma patient. He had about 12 years of fighting melanoma, and in February 2012, the melanoma metastasized to his eyelid. He was, we did surgery and recurred. He went on a combination of the most advanced drugs, the immunotherapy drugs for melanoma. This is EP and PD-1. I don't think PD-1 still has approval, but is in the process of being approved, and Avastin. These two drugs are considered really huge improvement in the fight against melanoma. The tumor continued to grow while the patient was getting these treatments. This is a 3D reconstruction of images that we use for radiation therapy. So I just copied some of these images. So you can see tumor is huge. And this image shows the tumor really nicely in 3 dimensions. And this is how he came to us. He had a huge tumor in his eye, fungating, smelly, really we couldn't stay in the room with him, bleeding. His family didn't want to stay with him, and he was told that he has 6 months to live. So we treated him with a course of radiation plus hyperthermia. This is daily hyperthermia and radiation. And when he came back after 5 months from the time of start of the radiation treatment, the tumor was completely gone. This is another picture of him, shows the extent of the inflammation, and with the course of radiation plus hyperthermia, the tumor completely disappeared. There's some other pictures. Now, what is the mechanism of action here? We think in his case, actually, what hyperthermia did, it ruptured the cell membrane of the tumor, to release the antigens to the environment, so the tumor antigen could have been detected much easier, so the immune system can mount an attack against the tumor. There are some new studies, I don't have reference to it, that the patient had 2 tumors. You treat one tumor, the other tumor shows sign of improvement. So that means that hyperthermia is activating the immune system against tumors. There are lots of studies being done on the effect of hyperthermia on the immune system. I can talk about the effect of hyperthermia when it's combined with radiation or with chemotherapy, but I'd like to open the floor to any questions.
Questions or comments up here? Yes, Peter.
I've just got a question about hypothermia and prostate cancer. How do you apply it to prostate cancer?
There are 2 ways we could do it. I have done a lot of, I think I've done about 600 to 700 prostate cancer in combination with brachytherapy. This is a treatment that you put 16 to 17 hollow needle in the prostate, and it's the end of the needle stick up this much. These needles are used for delivering brachytherapy. Brachytherapy is a source at the end of a very long tube under computer control to goes into each one of those needles to deliver the treatment. We connect those needles to the same machine that I showed you the picture, and we send a current through the needle there. and the tissue acts like a resistor. That's the best type of hyperthermia from my experience, always shrinks the prostate. Almost always, all of our patients have a enlargement of prostate.
You just mentioned shrink the prostate. I'm really referring to prostate cancer.
Yes, yes, we will treat it, but I was saying that that's another effect of it. The other way we can do, I have an example of the prostate patient that we have treated, if you like, I can show you. This patient had a PSA of 14.3, and he was getting up every night 5 times to go to the bathroom. We treated him with daily dose of radiation plus hyperthermia. His PSA during the treatment dropped to 2 very rapidly, and he does not wake up at night anymore. If he does, it's only once.
Have you done any tests where you specifically treated prostate cancer and measured it before and after?
As far as what?
Well, any measurements to show that cancer disappeared. And I'm particularly referring to what Friedrich Flowers does in Germany, where they actually put a tube up the urethra into the prostate and generate heat from the center of the prostate to the outside of the prostate rather than from the outside in.
Well, actually, hyperthermia has been so effective against prostate cancer that FDA has approved a new device that urologists only use. And that's exactly that. That's a microwave antenna they put through the urethra into the prostate area, and they heat the prostate to shrink the prostate and treat it. But we use hyperthermia only in combination with chemotherapy or radiation. That's how FDA has approved us.
I have a question for you. You said that your hyperthermia is FDA approved.
Correct.
Full body hyperthermia approved by FDA in this country?
No, it's not. It's
Why?
not. We just had a new physician joined us, and his comment about full body hyperthermia was that his partner was doing full body hyperthermia, and he killed 3 patients. That's not a good thing. That's not a safe treatment because you're messing around with the brain, the temperature of the brain.
I have about one more.
Simply, any report on either clotting or hemolysis of blood with reduced temperature?
I don't have any information.
Okay. Dr. Rafi, thank you very much. Dr. Yu, if you would come up, we'll work on getting this in the meantime. One of the things I'd like to comment, particularly as it relates to the last question about whole body hyperthermia, in the United States in the probably mid to late 70s, Zion, Illinois, and Whitestone, New York, Don Cole, Antonio Pong, and their associates were using whole body hyperthermia, where they would take the patient, put them into a bag, and heat it up, and it would certainly alleviate what you just described, because then they would control the moderate temperature of the head. But they were raising the entire patient up to about 108. And yes, they did see tumors disappear, and the patients survived because, first of all, they knew what they were doing, and second of all, they were monitoring the entire patient, not just going after the tumors. Very happy to have Dr. Yu. You've been here before. Enjoy your book, and I know that your specific copy this weekend was parasites. So, Dr. Simon Yu, thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. I practice in St. Louis, and I really do not specialize in cancer therapy, but I do see cancer patients. If you look at the pattern, I do local acupuncture meridian assessment, and I see the pattern. There's always a parasite problem, whether you have cancer, autism, MS, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. So I end up writing an article about this phenomenon, the connection between parasite, cancer metabolism, and how do I find out for understanding energy medicine. So for the last 4 days, we've been talking about new medicine based on new biology. We're talking about long-term effects, mind, body, and spirit, the medicine for it. Since I did a rush up at the end, I couldn't finish the slide. I guess I put my slide from that one. So, for those people who came a few days ago, I did talk about this patient with a large mass in his lymphoma, metastasis to the L4 and T1. That tumor disappeared with cancer medication, ivermectin and Levamisole. And was it a true lymph tumor? I wasn't. I was just trying to balance that meridian system. It happened to just tumor spontaneously just disappeared. But when patients get better, they never finish what I recommended to the dental to be done, chelation, detox. They don't do it until 1 year later, the cancer comes back. And by then, it is too late to treat it. Now, that's the kind of scenario I see over and over. When you ask him why did this come back, his response was, I'm paying over $2,000 a month on medical insurance. I just don't have money to see you. So they want that security for medical care, so they can get the hospice care, but they're looking for the other alternative therapy. So this is to give you an idea of what we are dealing with. Parasite, fungus, bacteria, virus all play their role into aerobatic dysfunction and mitochondrial damage. That's a hallmark of Warwick's effects. And one of my interests has been, first of all, I always use the military analogy that I explained. I've been in the military for 25 years. You think about cancer as an asymmetric threat that engaging in unconventional warfare. The only way to solve the problem is by another unconventional approach to solve it. To do that, we have to think about the quantum effects. This is one of the interesting interviews to you. I just found out this year when my patient went to Johns Hopkins, former professor. They developed 3-bromopyruvate with 100% success rate treating cellular cancer in the breast. And the lady the scientist who published the paper at Johns Hopkins got sacked by political reasons, and now the Johns Hopkins are using that drug to treat other cancer patients and trying it right now. Only the difference is that she has a patent for 3-bromopyruvate, and Johns Hopkins has recently explained 3-bromopyruvate that comes potential side effects. And this is the basic concept of cancer metabolism and 3-bromopyruvate. The normal cell and the cancer cells. Cancer cells are high in hexokinase, and this particular 3-bromopyruvate is blocked at the hexokinase, and it will induce apoptosis for the cancer cells that have a great success on at least an animal model. You can look into this website for politics. It is a compound. It was developed by Young-Hee Ko, he's a Johns Hopkins scientist. And I do use also extensively parasite medication. One of my favorite medications is ivermectin. There's effects on protein A kinase, and they will block the NF2 tumor lines, and they need that for 70% of tumor cells in the human. I use all kinds of medications. We cannot think about nutrition with a parasite problem, and we're going to skip this part. I always look into the dental part of it. Briefly talk about this, the evolution. The protozoa is the base of human cells, and then you regress back with metabolically cellular behavior as a protozoa, as an anaerobic metabolism. And I'm going to stop from here and open up the questions. Here's about cancer mimicking malignancy, and also those infections that causing cancer. This is the review article from Tufts University and from University of Calgary, and I'm going to start here. There's a case. I do measure all those meridians, and I monitor this energetic system. And one of my main messages is that whatever we've been doing here for the last 4 days, all the different practitioners, I want you to think about cancer as a target treatment modality that is something that's said, but sometimes when you go through the process, sometimes tumor disappears on its own. But apply those other modalities that we've been talking about for the last 4 days. And I'm going to open up the questions to the public here. Yes.
I'm a veterinarian.
Yes.
And that ivermectin horizontal under the treatment recommended is available in the cat shop or app store as an equine. The ivermectin horizontal formula that Jane had recommended as a very good anti-cancer treatment is available in any tack shop or ag store in the equine section. It's a common wormer, a combo wormer. I know that ivermectin is extremely safe. You can give 10 to 20 times the dose to livestock. We use it across species with total safety. The praziquantel, I think you have to be very careful with. It's not recommended for the very young animals. But I'm just curious as to that combo, which cancers you have found that it's most effective with?
Well, it depends on which meridians, balancing which kind of a cancer, what kind of meridian I'm dealing with. So, gallbladder meridian that control the entire system. Often I use ivermectin, very colorful stengiloid. And the gallbladder meridian and liver meridian works together, and I use praziquantel. If you have a prostate, they often have a protozoal problems, and I put them on either tinidazole, metronidazole, or adenine. I just had a dentist just came, we had a total prostatectomy for prostate cancer, still have high in PSA, and they have PSA 6.6, and PSA should be 0. Some of the total prostatectomy. I told him he's got parasite problem, he didn't believe me, but last minute he changed his mind, took parasite medication, within 30 days, his PSA back to normal. So there's a connection to it, but you said about the what is available. You can buy from over the counter. I didn't think. Some of my patients will go to veterinarians, pet shop markets, or farmers market, and they will take the medication. I cannot encourage it to do it. You said it. You got the idea. Is that it? Anybody? Yes.
Mic check.
There's an element in the pharmaceutical industry that is suppressing ideas, suppressing freedom of speech, suppressing all kinds of things that need cures and do cure things. George Washington's personal doctor, Benjamin Rush, said medical freedoms need to be guaranteed equal importance in the U.S. Constitution to religious freedoms. Absent that, we would have the rising of medical dictatorship, where we would constitute the Bastille of medical science, and sooner or later we would be living in a dictatorship, not in being by the forefathers. And that's exactly what we've got now. They have done everything. So the other thing is this: there's something called the Genocide Convention of the United Nations. When alternatives that are life-saving are being threatened, or are being, when alternative treatments that are life-saving are being suppressed, that constitutes genocide. This should be the patient's choice, not the FDA's choice, or the big pharmaceutical company's choice, especially. They can be punished under the Genocide Convention of the United Nations and the Organization of American States of 1948. You can look up the PDF files, Genocide Convention of the United Nations Organization of American States, just on the Yahoo Google search, you can download the PDF files. It's genocide, and they need to be punished if they continue this behavior of suppressing alternatives.
Well, I'm not really interested in challenging the authority. I've been in the U.S. Army for 25 years. I do follow the rule. I want to challenge the system correctly, without so they can be threatened by it. And this information is here. If they what the symptoms you have, you may have a parasite problem. But, we don't treat, we just treat the symptoms. And this is a really big problem. I'm trying to train physicians how to use parasite medications comfortably as a still part of the regimen. And I don't want to be present. Sometimes I get this about business or parasite problem, but that's not what I specialize. I happen to see this pattern over and over and over. So I'm trying to preach into the public and to the physicians. We have to look at parasites part of the problem, and it's not the only solution we have. It's just so important, just keep pushing that idea. Just look at some of the symptoms. All of you probably have a parasite problem. I know so. Yes.
So, a question, when you're using these medications that are, somewhat toxic, hepatotoxic, or affecting the gastric mucosa, you mentioned the tranithisol flagyl, I suppose, right, that you're taking steps to repair these side effects or effects.
Well, I never pronounce the medication right away. You open the channel, so you have to go to the bowel cleansing, you have to support the lymphatic channel, kidney support, liver support, you have to support them to even pass on medication. And when you put them on medication, you have to give them mass amounts of killing. You cannot just give a little for killing. You have to use a massive dose, and some of my physicians go in my lecture, the dose I use, they're shocked that the amounts of dose I use. I said, the biggest problem I'm telling you is they're not using enough the dose to kill it. You don't give enough dose to kill it, they do what? They move around. They're looking for safe cancer harm. You have to give them a massive dose. That's what called big rat theory. You have to kill them all. And that's the best prevention for whatever problem you have. And this is about training the doctors how to use it safely.
Thank you.
That's it. You all have medicines.
Dr. Hughes, thank you very much. Immensely appreciate your participation. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have a number of people to get in here, so we're going to do one more. So I will ask Judge Johnson to come up here right now, and again, we are a little bit tight for time. If we can just we'll close out the screen. And again, Dr. Johnson spoke over the weekend. Main topic, of course, is blood chemistry. Again, Joyce Johnson on blood chemistry.
Good evening. Kind of glad to be at the end of the evening. The reason being that I believe that my work is different from anyone that you've heard all weekend. It's another piece of the puzzle. I think the perfect picture of health is like a jigsaw puzzle. And I'm a big piece of that puzzle. This is why. Because I've taken most of the standard tests that your doctor does and made sense of them from the nutritional angle. You see what I mean? What I do is take the medical range. How do you think they get the medical range? A cross-section of American population, the mean average. And I ask you, do you think this is a sick population or a healthy population? So I bring in the standard deviation to a tight, nutritional, ideal range, which is where you should be. It has nothing to do with what the doctors tell you when they look at your blood work. So, stop playing Russian roulette with your life. I want you to be wise and understand and know how to read your own blood tests. And what I do is I send you to a lab near your home, Laboratory Corporation of America, in every city in this country, almost. They take the blood and the urine. We take hair samples or urine samples to test the heavy metal, mercury, cadmium, lead, arsenic, uranium, and all of that. And now we have 99 tests. And we download them into my computer program, which is one of a kind in the world. I was just very, very lucky to have a friend who's a mathematical physicist. He worked with NASA to get us on the moon. Pretty smart. And he took this information and made a software program that would take those chemistries and do 15,000 mathematical calculations for the interrelationships of all those tests. And this becomes your nutritional blueprint. I take that information, any medical records you provide, a 4-page questionnaire that you fill out about your symptoms, your medical background history, the foods you eat, and all of that kind of thing, exercise, stress. And then it takes me 4 hours at least to take all that information, be somewhat of a detective, and put it all together to make sense from a nutritional angle. There's certain foods that you should eat that you're not. There are certain foods that you're eating that you should not be eating. It's not one shoe fits all. We all have different fingerprints, different DNA, so we all have different needs for what we eat. Just to give you an example about triglycerides. I have a visual aid. This is a handful of coins. This coin represents a red blood cell. It's flat, it's indented inside, and it carries oxygen all around the edge and the top and the bottom. And you read that red blood cell in your CBC, in your differential, and you'll see the hemoglobin is carrying oxygen on the red blood cell, all around the top and around the red cell, and going and squeezing into the tiny capillaries and oxygenating your whole body. But what happens when your triglycerides rise over 95? It's like a stack of coins. A stack of coins. Can you picture? Now you can only carry oxygen at the top and the bottom and around the edges. And can you picture that this red cell can no longer squeeze into the capillary? So what happens to the capillaries? They die off. So it's not only that your red cells are clumping and can't carry as much oxygen, you're losing miles and miles of circulation. And that's anoxia. That's a lack of oxygen. That is where cancer thrives. And that's a pretty piece of the puzzle, which is why I gave out my book, because it has all the detail in here that is going to help you help yourself, so you don't play Russian roulette with your life. So those who are listening and those who are watching can get this wonderful manual, Blood Chemistry, The Key to Predicting Cancer, just by calling me, 800-545-6923. emailing me to drjoyce1@gmail.com. And let's get this book all over the country so everyone can take care of themselves, save their lives, and understand what you should and shouldn't be eating. I disagree with the idea that everyone needs to be a vegan. I disagree because some people need animal products. The blood chemistry is going to dictate that. And that's what I'm good at. Looking at your blood work, putting the puzzles together, and giving you a map to follow so you can conquer the problem from the nutritional angle. That's a huge piece of the puzzle. For example, the average doctor is going to run about 23 tests, a 10 to 20, or something of that nature. They're going to run a CBC and probably a lipid panel with cholesterol and triglycerides. But they're going to leave out a lot. In fact, earlier one doctor talked about ferritin, iron, saturation of iron, TIBC, UIBC. Doctors never run that. You need to know. I mean, I've known doctors and people have come to me with my help, or for my help. Their red blood cells were low, so the doctor's giving them iron. And they could have hemochromatosis. They could have low red blood cells and still have iron that was too high. That's crazy. And they never run an iron panel. They don't run LDH. That's the lactase dehydrogenase. It tells us about the free radicals. And oh yes, the free radicals. The free radicals are high. That's going to mean that you have a problem with oxidative stress. And when you have a problem with oxidative stress, you have short telomeres. There's a connection there. Telomeres tell you how long you're going to live. The telomeres get shorter and shorter. As you get sicker and sicker, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? The short telomeres are causing you to be sick. But guess what? You can make the telomeres longer, to give you a longer life to prevent disease. So I'm just suggesting that you really study this manual of blood chemistry. It's a blueprint. And if you have any questions, my phone number's in here. I have an open line. It's a miracle. I actually answer my own phone. So thank you for letting me be a part of your education.
So thank you very much. Questions, comments from the panel? Ladies and gentlemen, any questions in the audience? Okay. And you will be here the rest of the day until it's over, so people can talk to you.
There's one person that asked me during the break, and they must have gone home. I said, I'm not going to answer you because there are questions and answers at the end. The question was, how do you make a telomere grow longer? Why didn't you ask that? Are you also tired?
Short telomere.
The way you make a telomere. It would be terrible to look at your telomeres because we can look at those in the blood, and I can do that test for you. It's just really expensive because it's like when computers were new, they were $5,000, and testing telomeres is brand new. They do it in Spain, and they have an office in Florida, and it's complicated. It costs you $900. But the fun thing about telomeres is if they're short, that doesn't mean it's a death sentence. You can make a telomere grow longer with exercise, with stress management, meditation's good, happiness, eating correctly. All of those things make your telomere grow longer. Isn't that great? You are in control. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who want to know the telomeres, please see Joyce at the conclusion of it, because most of us will stick around to interact, network, and talk about all of these things. Right now, we need about a 5-minute break to change our master recording devices. Hopefully, don't go too far away. One thing Dr. Joyce just mentioned was exercise, and there were a couple of people over the weekend. Didn't get a chance to talk about it before, but over on the left side of the room, you see that device. That is a 4-minute exercise device, and during the break, but after the program, please talk to Al Kemi about how it works to help either your patients or you as the patient. And when we come back, Dr. Newsom, you will be up. So don't go too far, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you please take your seats. Come to order. We have, I believe we have 3 more presentations this afternoon. And then you can talk as long as you want. Betsy or Craig, just tap on the gong a little bit. And what happened to Peter Starr? Did we lose Peter? Okay. Yes, please take your seats. If you have any colleagues or buddies outside that are supposed to come in, quickly let them know. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We want to get back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. And again, we would like to remind you that here today, you can pick up the DVDs for, I think, almost every presentation, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Today may not be completed yet, but individual DVDs are there. If you would like to purchase complete sets, which we recommend, seems to be the best, most effective, efficient way, cost effective, and you want to take some of those home, find the ones that you want on the rack, mark the ones you take on the form, and Chuck has agreed to that Malibu Video will pick up the postage to send the ones that you don't take with you today. And by all means, for your car when you're driving, or maybe when you go to sleep at night with your eyes closed, buy the compact disc, the audio portion of all of these, and again, complete sets, whether it's the DVDs or the CDs, include today's presentation. You can't pick up today's presentation yet, but it will be sent to you, particularly if you buy all of the complete sets. We also want to mention Joyce Johnson gave her book to you, and again, this is a tremendous self-help for you as an individual, and for the physicians, it's something that you can probably use to help educate your patients and bind the relationship with your patient a little bit more, because then perhaps your patient will be more compliant. I think most every physician that I've ever met says the number one problem in eliminating disease and restoring health is patient non-compliance. So any of these are some of the tools that are available to help in patient compliance. So as soon as good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the 42nd Annual Cancer Control Society Convention Doctor Symposium, Labor Day weekend 2014, and we're at the lovely Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, California. Our next presenter is going to be Dr. Dan Newsom. He is a naturopath. He's also a professor at several schools, has extensive experience both here in the United States and in Latin America, so he has a perspective that most people don't have. Dr. Newsom, very happy to have you here.
Thank you. And if you have one of these, take a look at my bio on page 16. Look at my picture here. You'll notice how phenomenal my products have been to me. I've been taking my products ongoing for the last 10 years. My products have been excellent, but not quite that good. That's not my picture. Okay. Yeah, they're good, but not quite that good. All right. I got good tolerance. They're like way big, you know. So, one thing I want to point out before I get started on my presentation is notice how many experts have been up here talking about microbes. We had Dr. Wu talking about parasites. We have viruses we've been talking about, protozoa, bacteria, fungus. Okay, if you've been here for the whole conference, look at how many people have been talking about the bug problem. Okay, we have a bug problem, quote unquote, right? We got microbe issues. Okay, I'm going to touch on that here real quick in just a minute. First, I want to go through. There's a pathway on how we end up in the mess that we're ending up in degenerative disease and in cancer. Okay, they start off in two places. They start off inside the body. Okay. In endobiotics. Endobiotics are waste in free radicals and cellular byproducts that are produced by everyday normal wear and tear. Okay, these things develop. They in essence, it's like ash filling up in a wood stove, okay? Eventually it kills the fire, right? On the other end, we have xenobiotics. And xenobiotics are toxic materials from the outside, okay? Things that we get exposed to. Those are like GMO foods, EMFs we talked about earlier, infection of every kind, that would be a xenobiotic. Pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, all kinds of anything that's toxic is a xenobiotic, right? Both of these groups, you have endobiotics and xenobiotics, directly increase our rate of oxidation. I grew up around Detroit. They salt everything there because we get inches and inches and inches of ice in the winter. You ever seen cars in Detroit? Not most of them, because they got holes in them. You only see also a part of the car. They've been around for 4 or 5 years, they got holes in them because of rust. They rust, they oxidize because of salt. Salt oxidizes them, it rusts them out, you know. In Canada too, yes sir. Okay, so that's oxidation. That's exactly what these xenobiotics and endobiotics do to your cells and your tissues. Okay, they start rusting them. Okay, the rate of oxidation increases, and as that increases, decomposition of your cells and tissues also increases. As that increases, your pH starts to drop, the energy potential of the cells drops, and as that happens, then you have a drop in metabolic activity. We heard earlier, all cancer patients have low body temperature. You know why? They have low metabolic activity. Okay, they're at this point. Now we've got low pH, we've got low energy potential, now we have low metabolic function. At that point, once that low metabolic function starts, your microbes turn on you. All the good microbes in your body become your enemy. Okay? What happens, because of the internal environment, those microbes start eating all the waste that's being produced, all that endobiotic material. They start eating that. They start eating the xenobiotic material, and you start eating your RNA and your DNA. While this happens, there's another thing that starts to go on. It's called inflammation. And inflammation that doesn't go away with one Tylenol or one ibuprofen. Inflammation that sets in and stays in. Okay? Now, what we're doing with medicinal mushrooms with fulvic acid, I'll tell you the benefits of what we have. One, fulvic acid chelates and detoxifies. We can use fulvic acid against both all endobiotics, okay, things that are produced from our normal everyday metabolic waste and wear and tear. We can also use it against all xenobiotics, okay, GMOs, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, all this chemical, all the garbage that we come into contact with, okay? Fulvic acid can remove this from your system. Number two, fulvic acid is an excellent delivery system. It will get nutrients where they're supposed to go in your body. Wherever you're having holes in your nutritional matrix, fulvic acid will put the nutrients where they're supposed to go. Fulvic acid has 14 tetratrillion electrons to donate. There isn't an antioxidant on the planet that can compare to that. Okay, it's an antioxidant quencher, a free radical quencher. It's a super antioxidant, so it can decrease the rate at which your body rusts. We can slow oxidation with fulvic acid. Fulvic acid, especially when you combine it with medicinal mushrooms, regulates pH. If pH is too high, we bring it down. If it's too low, bring it up. If you have a low metabolic rate, it's going to be too low. Okay? Things are becoming, they get stagnant, they turn acid. So the fulvic acid can bring the pH back up for those with cancer. Fulvic acid is a powerful electrolyte and can massively increase your energy potential. can, in essence, recharge the cellular batteries, okay? In doing that, it causes the body to start repairing your broken metabolism. As this happens, fulvic acid is like superfood. It's like miracle grow, if you will, for your probiotics. Fulvic acid can turn the good bacteria, okay, the nice microbes in your system, and they can turn them back into your friends. Fulvic acid can turn your microbes off of you and back into your corner. Okay, instead of eating your nutrients and tearing up your cells, eating your RNA and DNA, fulvic acid can turn them around so they start building your RNA and DNA. Okay, it can turn the pH back in the direction it's supposed to be. It can turn things back in the right direction by using fulvic acid, especially when you use it in conjunction with medicinal mushrooms. I'm about out of time here, so let's take questions. Last sentence. Well, you have anaerobic bugs on one side that build your RNA and DNA. Okay, anaerobic microbes. On the other side, you have, you have oxygen-based microbes on one side that build your RNA and DNA. On the other side, you have sugar-based, okay, or anaerobic microbes that eat RNA and DNA. Okay, with fulvic acid, we're maximizing the activity of your aerobic, your oxygen-powered microbes.
Questions, comments from the panel? Dr. Menes?
What's the best source of fulvic acid?
Mine? No, there are multiple sources,
Like in food also? Or?
Your best sources, your best natural sources of fulvic acid are roots. Herbal roots and root vegetables. Carrots, sweet potatoes, any root, ginger root, ginseng root, excellent source of fulvic acid. Sure.
I'm going to have concept against concept of pleomorphism and biological tolerance to explain to the audience.
Okay, pleomorphism. Pleomorphism is when that's what I was talking about. Thank you, sir. That is when your good bugs become bad bugs. Okay? When the environment inside your body is in an optimal, healthy state, your bugs, I'm going to call it the bugs or microbes, okay, bacteria, fungi, whatever you want to call them, but I'm just going to call them bugs for everybody's sake, okay? Your bugs will work for you when the environment of your body is in an optimal state. You have very low oxidation, a normal pH, minimal stress. Your good bugs, they behave and they rebuild your body. Okay, they actually will help to maintain that equilibrium that you've achieved. Okay, if you've done something to improve your health, your microbes will help keep you there. All right. The moment the environment in your body starts to change, okay, and starts a downward spiral, those bugs can, they call it polymorphosize, they can turn. Okay, in some cases they can go from being an aerobic bug to an anaerobic bug. Right? That's what Dr. Yu's talking about here. Does that answer? Is that a good?
So I think the past and what in this complex pleomorphic sample.
Exactly. Yes, parasites. Okay. Parasites can have up to a 6 to 8 week reproductive cycle. Ascaris ends up in your gut. This is roundworms. Okay. It starts in your lungs, and at night it crawls up into your mouth, and heads down the chute with the mucus, and you swallow it. Gross. Sir.
What kind of medicinal mushrooms are you?
I primarily use cordyceps and reishi mushrooms. I use cordyceps for its, not just its immune modulating effect, but also for its adaptogenic effect. Cordyceps is an excellent adaptor. If anybody here has adrenal issues, the function of your adrenal gland is to enable your body to adapt to stress. Anything you can do to increase your body's capacity to adapt will help you with any of your adrenal issues, also any other hormonal issues.
Okay. You mentioned cook or raw?
Raw. If you, microbes in the soil are what produce formic acid. Okay? Cooking food reduces the, or how, we were talking about hypothermia, okay? Cancer cells and microbes die at the same temperatures. So you cook your food, heat will kill the microbes.
Proclamation, thank you very much. And again, you'll be around to network. Peter Starr is coming up. I want to remind not only those of you that are here, please take the biographies, take them with you because it has a complete description of the speakers over the weekend, but it also has contact information. And for those of you that are seeing this on our live stream, first time in 42 years, the entire convention and the symposium has been available on live stream. YouTube, Cancer Control Society, Thrive with 3 I's, Thriiide, and then look for this. And again, the quality of the production today in terms on the live stream is not what it will be next year, but it is there. And there are people who've already heard various parts of the country have seen it on live stream. If you're seeing this on live stream, particularly if you're not familiar with Cancer Control Society, go to cancercontrolsociety.com, call the headquarters, send an email, ask for the biographies, and if you go online, most of the online. The other thing is that we do have access to all of the DVDs, I believe the CDs, certainly tells you how to order those, particularly if this is your first time. My understanding is a YouTube that will stay there probably until the NSA takes it off.
Next week.
All right, Peter Starr, film producer, prostate cancer survivor, and the work that he's done, I think, has twofold. Number one, it's a self-help device for patients to restore hope if there is hope for prostate cancer. The other thing, from the standpoint of the professional, here in his program, and he'll talk about it, are other qualified credentialed medical doctors and researchers that have validated the work and the therapy that Peter utilized. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I want to thank Lorraine and Frank for inviting me to come up here this weekend. It's been a great session for me to learn from so many people that really know a lot more than I do. I'm really a sponge, and I suck it up and I throw it out here to people that really want to know. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about right now. I get asked to talk at groups because I am a communicator, I'm an educator. And I've learned over the last 10 years, I'm now a 10-year prostate cancer survivor without surgery, drugs, or radiation. Thank you. And the first 5 years were the most difficult. They were the most difficult because nobody seemed to know what worked. And we were out there in the ether wondering if this particular person knew what they were talking about, because there was no documentation for a lot of what they were saying. I mean, some of the things that we talked about over this weekend, there's very little documentation that says this really works for everybody. And of course, very little really works for everybody, because nobody takes the same medicine the same way, with the same frequency, and has the same body chemistry. So it really is a question of putting your toe in the water and hoping to God that whatever that guy says is really going to work. I've kind of narrowed that down a lot. After the first 5 years, I think I've really got it right. The cancer seemed to have disappeared, my attitude was much better, my health was much better overall, so I continued in the same direction. And 3.5 years ago, I set about going around the world to interview 56 practitioners and doctors that I thought knew what they were talking about. Not to say that there aren't many other practitioners that know what they're talking about, but these are the ones that I've spoken to on the phone, whose protocols I had looked at, some of which I'd taken on and done myself. And that's how I put the documentary together. It's a 3 DVD set. The first DVD is really a documentary that you might see on television. In fact, we're working right now to put a 60-minute version of it on PBS. We're hoping to later in November. We're not 100% sure that yet. We're still working on the date. And it's like the cliff notes of what I've done. It'll be on PBS as a pledge drive. The main documentary is 1 hour and 45. And the other 2 discs are made up of extra material. So if you like, for instance, what John Cannell has to say about vitamin D3, and you want to see what else he has to say, you go to the other discs, and there's probably 15, 20 minutes of other material that he wants to talk about that we just didn't have time to put in the documentary. But if you have prostate cancer, it's important, because you need to become your own doctor. I hate to say this to a group of doctors here, but you've got to work with a doctor. You've got to know a bit of what you're doing. You cannot take everybody's word for thinking it's gospel. We've seen what's happened with conventional medicine that way. We say, oh, this will cure your prostate cancer. Let me take that prostate out. Then remove the prostate. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure we quite got that. I think we're going to radiate you for 8 weeks. So they radiate you for 8 weeks. And then after that, they say, after they've gone through your bladder and gone through your colon, well, we're really going to make sure, so we're going to cut off your testosterone and we're going to castrate you. That's called practicing medicine. I didn't start out to be a comedian. But the problem is, if you're on my side of the fence as a patient, and you're a urologist, I had a biopsy. I had no idea what a biopsy was. I'd never had one done before. I'd rarely been to the doctor in my entire life until I ran out of insurance. And I thought, well, there's another story. I ran out of insurance, and my regular GP said, well, you've got insurance this week, we'll do a test, and we'll do a physical. He did the digital rectal exam. I don't like the feel of that. So off we went to the urologist, and the urologist said, I don't like the feel of that either. We are going to do a biopsy. Notice that, we are going to do a biopsy. There was no asking me, or explaining me, or telling me what the rights and the wrongs, and it was done without anesthesiology. Thank you very much. No anesthesiology for that. I felt every damn thing that went on, but there was 12 cores that they took out. My PSA was 1.2. My Gleason score was 7. 12 cores of cancer. Yes, you've got to take that out. Well, I stand at that point. Well, the next day he called me up and says, yep, you've got cancer. I want you to read this book by Patrick Walsh and come in and see me. Play and hung up. Bedside manner number 1. I freaked out. All I heard was cancer. That's all I heard. I didn't hear the book. I heard nothing. All I heard was cancer. 48 hours later, I finally got out of bed. Because I was absolutely petrified, because when you hear cancer, you're going to die. My father died not of prostate cancer, but of prostate cancer treatment. And I didn't know that until I'd done all this research that I've been doing over the past 10 years. I went back to England, looked at his medical records, and he'd been given a drug called flutamide, which is androgen deprivation drugs, like a Lupron acid. And he died because his heart stopped, because his muscles had contracted, his bones had shrunk, and the heart just stopped. On the death certificate, it says myocardiac infarction. It doesn't say death by prostate cancer drug. And that set me off a lot in terms of doing the research that I've done. And if I can leave, well, I want to leave you with a couple of things. One is that we've known for so long now that conventional medicine doesn't work for a lot of cancers. I want to read something real quick here. So John Bruce, who was a professor of clinical surgery at Edinburgh University, talking about the role of surgery while curing cancer, said, the future lies elsewhere than in the operating room. And that was 1970. In 1992, right here in America, a study reported in the Journal of American Medical Association of 223 patients concluded that no treatment at all for prostate cancer was actually better than any standard chemotherapy, radiation, or surgical procedure. 1992. We're still removing prostates. We're still radiating prostates. We're still castrating men chemically. Unfortunately, we have people in the naturopathic, and I use that word very loosely, profession, the alternative side, that can offer patients more. And I want to leave you one thought, and I'll open the floor to any questions. We need to get the word out better to men before they get diagnosed, not after the date. Most people call me up, they've seen the documentary, or they've seen me on the website, they've had surgery, radiation, they've had and they're impotent, incontinent, and the cancer's back, and the doctor says there's nothing we can do for it. The damage has been done over there. They come to us. I'm not a doctor, but this is where they come. I'm a disseminator of information. And I have to find people to try and help these people out. That's what happens. I was at, if you've got one more minute, I was asked to give a talk at the Beth Israel Hospital in New York. I happen to be in New York. And they said, will you please come and talk to our prostate cancer survival group, or support group, which I did. And there was probably 20 men in this room, all of whom had prostate cancer. Most had had surgery, many had had radiation, and about half of them the cancer had come back. And I talked about what I had learned in a very short period of time. This is very early on in the time that I had to learn what I'd learned. And afterwards, I said to the two guys that were most open, who the cancer was back, they were expected to die, there was no hope for them. And I said to them both, I said, given now what I've told you and what I've learned, and the state that you're in compared to the state you're in, would you do what you've done before, or how would you change what you did? Both of them said, we do exactly what the doctor told us. This is absolutely true. We have a communication problem with patients. Patients do not know what the options are that are out there. I believe it's my job, and I believe that I was given cancer as a blessing. I believe it's now my job to try and convince patients, not necessarily to not do surgery, that's their decision, that's their choice, but at least make that decision when they have all of this information at their fingertips. That, I believe, is the paradigm I want to turn around and present to people. And we're starting out, hopefully in November, we're trying to get funding now, to do a very short study in Southern California of going to Rotary clubs and social civic groups like that, where the majority of men, where we can actually present this case before they get diagnosed with prostate cancer. Anyway, thank you.
Peter, thank you very much. Thanks for the comment for Peter.
When is your documentary going to be on television?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you, we don't know. We have to do a test market. The rules with PBS are that because they've looked at it, I've cut it down from an hour and 45 minutes to an hour, which is what they wanted. We've cut out some key things that they consider too controversial. I think that, I kid you not, if you went through the meetings with these people, you think, are you educators on television? It's just not so. And I've had to just get in on television, I've had to cut out some controversial things. One of which we have, and did anybody see my speech yesterday? You saw the animation where we showed where the prostate was and what it does, and you saw the penis being erect. We had to cut that out. We could not show an erect penis. True. So when you see it on television, it's gone. That piece is gone. So we've done all of this work now. It's taken me 6 months to bring it this far along. We've got to do a test market. I'm going to Boise next week to meet with Idaho Public Television, which is, I'm told, is a good test market for us to do because it's isolated from the rest of the television markets. And we're going to do our test market. Then I'll know when it's going to go national after that.
Well, I just want to say this is that the term cancer survivor is appropriate for those who've been through the conventional treatments and survived. But the people who are doing what we're talking about this weekend should be called cancer conquerors. And that should be, you are a cancer conqueror. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. One last comment.
Censoring that type of thing, because if they're going to censor things like that, they're censoring things like what really works for cancer and like that. Instead of dealing with them, going to be dealt with internet companies to put it up without censorship, which is how it's censored.
Well, there's two issues going on here. One is what we call the freedom of information on the internet. Unfortunately, I've got investors in this documentary. We've got almost $300,000 invested in this. Well, it's possible. It's possible. For right now, I'm trying to reach a mass audience, and I think we will. And I think we'll get enough people to watch it on PBS in the long haul that it will break the back of what I'm trying to do. See, the other problem is I have no credentials. I don't have PhD or MD or ND after my name. Everybody in my documentary does. I mean, I have the Associate Professor of Clinical Urology from Harvard Medical School, Abraham Morgan. I have Julian Whitaker, I've got Jay Mead, I've got doctors out of the wazoo, very highly qualified people. Me, I don't. And that was another issue with PBS. They said, why should we believe you? I said, you don't need to. There's 56 other people here with credentials after their name. It's an issue that I personally have to face and I'm facing. But thank goodness I managed to get some of the best people in the documentary that I knew at the time.
Peter, as you go off and Archie Scott's getting ready to come up, you mentioned the element that you had that PBS would not allow you to put in there. To quote Robin Williams, God gave man a penis and a brain and not enough blood flow to operate both at the same time.
Well, let me say God bless Robin Williams. And I wish we had some way to deal with depression the way that I feel we have now to deal with certain cancers. Because God knows He made me laugh a lot.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously at any conference, any program, there's a first speaker and the last one. We've saved kind of Archie for this spot because he's going to be talking about DMSO, dimethyl salt oxide, if you've never heard about it. And there's so many things about it that are so important that obviously we want Archie part of the program. His book, I believe, is still available at the Cancer Book House, and there's so many things, in my opinion, because of people's work with and his experience, and a practical application both for physicians and individuals with DMSO. So Archie, take over. Thank you.
Dimethyl sulfoxide, or DMSO, has proven effective in the treatment of ailments ranging from arthritis and athletic injuries to cancer, mental retardation, and stroke. In fact, either by itself or in combination with other medications, DMSO has proven effective in the treatment of practically every ailment known. Now, in the past, I've talked about cancer and various other ailments. Today, I'm going to concentrate more on the brain. Over the last year, I've been very involved with former football players. And as you've read and heard on the radio, there's been a major problem with brain damage that has occurred over the years with athletes, not only football players, but boxers, hockey players, soccer, you name it. And these problems, many cases, don't develop until many years later. Like many of these football players have retired 30 years ago, and then they develop what is called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is basically a brain damage In many cases, this is not caused by a concussion. It's caused by minor brain trauma thousands of times. And you can get the same damage if you get hit many times as if you get hit once real hard. And sometimes the cumulative damage is much worse. Now, why does DMSO work in treating these problems? There's several things about DMSO. First, DMSO will cross the blood-brain barrier, and that's important. DMSO is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories. And unlike most anti-inflammatories, either steroidal or non-steroidal, DMSO does not have the harmful side effects like you could have yesterday. DMSO is also a very potent free radical step. And free radicals cause damage over a period of years. They've been implicated in most degenerative diseases. So we have a product that works on these football players. I'm going to comment briefly on one player. He retired 30 years ago after 14 years in the NFL. 2 years ago, he was suffering from a variety of mental problems. He was forgetful, not having a very happy life, and just general mental problems. He started getting injections. He started giving him injections of DMSO 2 years ago, last August. He felt better right from the first. He called me up the week after he got his first injection and said that he felt the best he's felt in years. Now he has no signs of any brain damage. He's still getting injections every week, but he has no sign of problems. Now, what should be done to the current players? Football players, boxers, hockey, soccer, any of those that get an obvious concussion should be treated immediately with an IV infusion. This doesn't mean doing it after the game. This means doing it immediately. That way, you reduce or eliminate the problems. Those that are not injured can either drink the DMSO or apply it topically on the head. And that will greatly reduce the future harmful side effects. So I'm not one of those that's opposed to contact sports. I'm very much in favor. But I believe in reducing the damage that can be done. Also, as an example with the former football players, they're much more likely to develop Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Lou Gehrig. Now, Alzheimer's at the present time is theorized to be caused by the beta amyloid protein. This is an indigestible protein that can be formed in various parts of the body. If it forms in the brain, it causes Alzheimer's. DMSO has been shown in a scientific test to resolve the beta amyloid protein. And there have been studies done on Alzheimer's patients, not in this country, unfortunately, that have shown that those who have Alzheimer's can have the condition reversed within a matter of months. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask questions either about the brain problems, cancer, anything involving DMSO. Yes.
I have a son who has an advanced case of multiple sclerosis, and we're talking like last stage. Is there any help that this DMSO could be helpful for him?
Yes, there have been studies with DMSO, and I have a chapter in my book on multiple sclerosis. Yes. And that's available to take your book out.
Let me ask you, did you have a case of a lady with MS who was all curled up, fetal in bed?
Yes, we had one here in South Pasadena. A lady that had multiple sclerosis for a number of years. She was in South Pasadena Convalescent Hospital. And she was, over a period of years, she improved. She had, originally, she was in a fetal, when you first started treating her, she was in a fetal position. And she was able later on to move her arms and legs. She even was able to feed herself. Yes.
There were a lot of mycoplasma bioweapons that were used. That was the cause of Gulf War syndrome. We stuff with Gulf Nicholson, the head of the Institute for Nuclear Medicine, nominated for the Nobel Prize, and we found this University of California, full professor of the campus. He's the one who discovered it. His daughter was a helicopter pilot in Gulf War I. She came back with Gulf War syndrome. They were saying it was post-traumatic stress disorder. He saw it was transmissible fluid by antibiotics. He found that they tried to kill him 6 times. They just how to really appear. At the end, the situation is that there are a lot of microplasms that could be in the state. The type of mitochondria that you are at least participating in multiple sclerosis and these people that you talked about now. We have a lot of bioweapons. There was a patient that I had in Southern VA in 1981 last year in my residency. He had very bad multiple sclerosis. He'd been given service-connected disability for it. And I didn't know how he got service-connected disability for multiple sclerosis because that means it cannot have the work. But this is a big political thing. Many years later, I found out from Dr. Nicholson and the Unemployment Research Foundation that people who were in the theater in 1939 that were testing microplasma bioweapons above the Shetland Island working on to have no multiple sclerosis at all, and the highest rates in the world, were given the service-connected disability for having acquired multiple sclerosis from bioweapons testing with microplasma in 1930.
DMSO, what is DMSO? Is that something created in the laboratory?
No, it's a byproduct of paper making. It's derived from trees. It's very cheap to produce. Something that one reason it is not used as widely as it should be really is because the patent on it ran out many years ago. It was first synthesized in 1866, and of course there's no big money to be made by pharmaceutical companies.
Archie, in your book, you detail how much to dilute the DMSO as you take it orally?
Okay, what I recommend when you take it orally is take a teaspoonful in a small glass of juice. DMSO, of course, can be used orally, topically, you can inject it either muscularly or intravenously.
Please pass the microphone over here.
Yeah, I have a PhD in physiological psychology, and I was interested in DMSO for a while. And for those who don't know, you can buy it at Costco in the form of DMSO food. And the literature that I read at the time, 2 or 3 years ago,
basically showed that for everything that's been tested so far, DMSO2 works exactly like DMSO without the 2. And its Costco is called MSM in Costco. And it's used, as an anti-arthritic sort of a thing. That you can, that's used for treating allergies. It's the MSM that's in the glucosamine and some of the products. So I just suggest that for people who want to just, number one, check the literature to see if that's still current, and if it's appropriate, then consider that as well.
Okay, MSM is derived from DMSO. The only advantage of MSM is the fact it does not produce the odor, the breath odor. But medically, DMSO is superior. If a person doesn't want to have the breath odor, I recommend using MSM because it's also a very useful product.
And it costs.
Yeah.
Are we using medical grade DMSO?
Yes, you, basically, you get good grade DMSO that does not have impurities. Even those that you buy, like, it's available in a lot of places. And most of the DMSO is safe. Even though it's been used from various places, there's been basically no control over it. Nobody has died from DMSO or had a really serious problem. No very serious side effects. Even those that didn't know what they were doing and were using it.
Any role with glioblastomas?
Yes, I would use any of the brain tumors. You should use, I believe that DMSO should be used with all of the brain tumors. Whether the doctor is one that uses natural products like Laetral, or if they use chemotherapy. DMSO has proven effective even with the chemotherapy. It reduces the toxic side effects while making it more effective against the cancer. So it's something that can be used either by alternative doctors or by conventional medicine. It's something that should be, in my opinion, used, especially with brain.
If someone with Parkinson's, a lot of the think that DMSO might help them, but they were on Parkinson's, typical Parkinson's medication. What could they do to use the MSO, maybe in some way start to back off the Parkinson's meds?
Well, depending on what Parkinson's medicines they were on, I would say go slow with the DMSO and see if you have any harmful side effects. Now, there's been some very good results with Parkinson's using Theravital H3, which is originally was the Romanian drug. And with that, of course, there's no problem.
Archie, before we conclude, and we do need to wrap it up pretty quickly, as I recall, many of the things that you've discussed today and a lot more were published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Medicine.
Okay, yeah, the New York
Sciences.
The New York Academy of Sciences, in 1975, we had a meeting, a convocation on the DMSO legal meeting in New York City. And the New York Academy of Sciences is regarded as the top scientific organization in the world. And a lot of this information, like using the DMSO for cancer, this is mainly with chemotherapy. And that was published in the New York Academy of Sciences publication. And also in mental retardation, where a large amount of information was available. And that's the documentation in these reports were unquestionable. They really documented.
And those were from all over the world.
These were all over the world.
Is that still available in print?
It's our print. I've got some copies. I made some Xerox copies of some of the material because it's, even though it's old, you know,
like some of us,
it's still good. It's like Chinese medicine, 4,000 years old.
Like some of
It
us.
still works.
And I want to thank you for that. And I'm sure that my copy, the photocopy, probably came from you. And because so much of the stuff related to the NSO, my family and I got from Archie. And as an example of how you can train your children, when my wife and I had 5 children, when they were growing up, couldn't have fall down straight, bump the head, walk into the wall, and things that children do, we'd always put the NSO, and it's to the point now where our grandchildren, at least 10 of them all enough, and even some of the very young ones, when somebody gets hurt, they run and say, where's the DMSO? The older ones that are old enough to go up and find it on the cabinet or wherever it is, will just go get it and bring it. So one of the adults and treat the sibling with it. So again, and another thing before we say goodbye, some years ago there was a 60-minute segment on DMSO, and the FDA official that was being interviewed, and I forget whether it was Mike Wallace or Morgan Safer, said if these people claim it's good for everything, if they just come to us and say it's only good for one thing, we'd allow them to use it openly and freely. Mitochondrial destruction.
It doesn't work out with antibiotics to treat the antibiotic resistant bacteria.
Archie, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I certainly want to thank all of you for being here. Before we go, just a couple of comments from here. We hear, again, I mentioned this over the weekend, side effects. And as our friend Tim Boland pointed out some years ago, these really are not side effects. They're direct effects, direct negative consequences. And I think side effects is a euphemism so that pharmaceutical products can continue to injure, maim, kill people because of these direct negative consequences, and again, get away with it and become or remain socially acceptable. So, and I think if we would refer to them as direct negative effects or direct negative consequences, people would begin to learn that when somebody says side effects, maybe you shouldn't use it, or you should certainly evaluate it very, very carefully. Again, we mentioned exercise. I think Al Penny will stick around and certainly talk to you about the exercise machine that he has. But the other thing I'd like to do is I would like to thank our oncology surgeon for coming today and let her know, and please share with your colleagues that what the Cancer Control Society would like to be is a bridge between your world and our world, which actually is the same world, but just has a different perspective, because we would like to share ideas and work harder at collaborating rather than appearing to be in opposition. So I certainly want to thank you. Again, there's a few more seats on the tour for tomorrow, and I believe certainly for Saturday, for the 13th. And on behalf of Lorraine Rosenthal, Chuck Wintner, and myself, and the board of the Cancer Control Society, we want to thank you for participating again in the 42nd Annual Cancer Control Society Convention, Labor Day weekend of 2014. Please don't forget to pick up your DVDs and your CDs, and we look forward to seeing you next year. We will be around to answer your questions and talk to you. And then again, there is a doctor here, practice, Los Angeles area, looking for an RN, RNP, or a PA interested in helping in that practice. If you know that, you're that person, or you want to know someone, please come see me. Again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here.